Hello, YouTube. We are finally at the point where we have attempted the One Piece card game, and we have someone doing a deck profile for us today for the limited format. Hi, Russell.
Hi, how are you?
Good. For those who don't know Russell, we've had him on the channel before. He was the guy that won the Ultimate Cup with Green Hybrid. That video is also on my channel. And he's going to show us what he thinks is the best deck in the current format.
Sweet. So, um, if you're interested in this in One Piece and you participated in the super release events that went on this past weekend, um, pretty much there's future tournaments coming up where you can combine two starter decks into one and use the promo pack to play in numerous events coming up online. Um, with the combined cards together, it pretty much changes up the way the entire format works. The meta is going to work, and I strongly believe that Kaido is probably the best deck to play. If not, the second would be Blue, which is Doflamingo, which is Crocodile. But I heavily believe that this deck is very favored against Blue, especially the way that you can build it or the cards that we have access to in the format, right? So
Good. And
a lot
just
of
real
people are going
quick,
to be. What, go ahead.
so sorry. I just want to say real quick. Russell here is going to be making content for One Piece. He
Oh
wants to
yeah,
be a One Piece content creator. So I will, for the YouTube audience, put his link in the description. You should definitely sub.
yeah.
Do that.
I used to make Pokemon content for like 5 or 6 years, and then I stopped playing Pokemon and I started playing Digimon. I made a couple videos for Digimon, but I really, really like One Piece, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to do consistent, heavy amount of content for this once the set drops in December. So if you're interested and want to sub, that's super, super cool. I appreciate it. If not, I just hope you enjoy the video and just give One Piece a try.
Give it a try, guys. Do it.
Okay, so when combining the decks together, most players already in the game will understand at near the end that you have to play four of these particular high power cards. The ones that are going to come up to be different are usually these vanilla cards. So in my case, I'm playing three of Sheep's Head. What this card gives you is an early play 2K vanilla, or 2K 2 cost 4K vanilla that I usually use to swing over opposing Bonnies, Jewelry Bonnies in the green matchup. So that's pretty much why I'm opting to play these. They also give you a 1K counter in hand, so they're not completely dead. But we're forced to play a certain amount of cards. We're forced to play 50 no matter what, and I'd rather have these 1K counters available in my hand than some of the other cards that are available to us. Next up, we have four Black Marias. Because every other starter deck got 1 cost 1K blockers. This is our form of that. In Black Maria, you need to play four. It gives you a 1K counter. So honestly, this is just like one of the best cards in the deck. You can't run this without currently playing four in the format. There's not much to go into there. The next up is four Sasaki. I like four of these because if you for some reason can't draw into your queen, your king, or Kaido by the time the late game comes, then you really want to use Sasaki's ability to Dawn -1 when you're at like 10 Dawn or you're ramping off your Onigashima to generate you another +1 card into your hand, or let you hit your key powerful cards. It's also a 1K counter, and it's not too bad being 3/4 for its drop, but it's just like a consistency play, and it's just to help you get to your Onigashima and your bigger cards later on when super necessary. I just love four of the symbols. Next up is probably one of the best cards that will be played in this format and in the first set drop, and that's Who's Who. Who's absolutely phenomenal, and even though it doesn't give you a 1K counter, what it does is pretty much pop annoying cards on the board that'll definitely give you problems over the course of a game. It can also come out of security for free. Its Dawn minus effect is mitigated by the best card in your deck, which is Onigashima. And overall, just you need to be playing four of these. They're phenomenal. They can pop unrested cards that are 3 costs or lower, and it's just really, really good. Next up, which is where it starts to change. Instead of playing any form of X Drake, I play four Jacks. And the reason I do this is because on the off chance that I'm low rolling, I'm not getting my Onigashima, you need some form of ramp to help you keep up with tempo. You also have like who's in your hands that may be dead in particular matchups, or like if you already have one, you definitely don't need to play two in one game. You'll want to discard one for Jack's ability. If not, you'll want to discard your extra Onigashima that you may have. If you play Onigashima, don't have a follow up Queen the following turn, then you definitely want to go into a Jack. Gives 1k counter. You can cut this down to 3 if you definitely feel like bumping up the Sheep's Head count or playing your own form of X-Drake, but I really just think having some consistent form of ramp in a format like this is very, very solid. Next up is 4 ulti. No matter what, if you're playing this, it's your 2k counter. If you get its ability to Dawn -1 and play in a page 1, which we also have 4 of from your hand, then that you're making this play if you want to dominate board position, and that's a common play you'll be making in the limited battles format, especially against red. While it's okay to have the 2k counter in hand, getting 2 bodies on board to punish red whenever they swing at you could be very, very impactful. And when you like ramp to 5 and you spend 4 to like play down ulti and you can mitigate it using your Onigashima, that extra 1 floating to be your blast breath can help you like blow out a mid to late game up into your favor, right? So, you know, 2 free 4k 4 cost bodies on board, one's a 6k. You can dominate poor position if you high roll and get these both at the same time. If not, 2k counter, 1k counter, easy discards. Vanilla 4/6s are very, very solid in this format. This is where it starts to get a little obvious of what everyone's going to be doing. No matter what, you need to play 4 of this card. You Dawn -1, draw 2, discard a card. It's also a blocker. 4 Queen, probably the second best card in the deck if we don't consider it Onigashima or Kaido. It just depends on what you're feeling. This is going to be played 4 of. Once set 1 drops 2. Absolutely, crazy card, just like Who's Who. Play 4. There's really no debate there. Next up, I do have 4 King. I've talked to a few new players and said they don't really see where they get much value out of playing King or why he's so strong, but this card is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of your power cards, and it's again what you're ramping up into. You're ramping up into a huge body that can go +1 as soon as it touches the board, as well as maintain a threat for the rest of the game to clear out any aggression that's put up against you. And all Kaido wants to do is dominate late game and set up a lethal off of its ability. So 4 of those. I play 4 Kaido right now. I kind of want to test out one of the promo Kaido. So if you're researching One Piece and you're learning there's other promos to play, I can absolutely see myself swapping out this for one of the promos just to get its banish effect in. I would only want to use that banish effect against red, so that way they're like, red usually puts himself down to a low hand no matter what. If you stay alive after they put all their aggression on you, the banishing Kaido can make sure that they don't get any form of resources back, and you can kind of like close out games and secure wins. Other than that, I want to play 4 because I want to consistently draw into it. If we hit our perfect combo, we hit Onigashima, we hit into Queen, and we hit into King, and then Kaido, you pretty much dominate every deck in this format. The only close matchup I believe you would have is Green, and that's only if they see multiple starter deck kids late. The red deck, if you're able to get to this point in the game when you have the big boys out, I'm pretty sure they can beat you late. Outside of like a Diablo Jambe. Next up is 3 Brachio Bomber. You can push this to 4. It's another form of ramp, just like we have our Jack in case we're missing our Onigashima. And it's a very nice removal for a Luffy or Basil Hawkins, right? So if you're going against green and they immediately play down like one of their 5 costs, you just respond your next turn with the Brachio Bomber. It's something that King can't touch. And having multiple copies of these doesn't feel too bad, especially in this format with not many 2k counters in hand. So instead of like having a 2k counter to help block against a 5 cost, you just immediately bounce the 5 cost, ramp an extra Dawn, and then the following turn play down a Kaido and start winning board back. So it's like back-to-back board bombs. And I think in the way people play limited deck battles, there's not much to commitment of like all their Dawn onto one of their power cards on board. Next up is 4 Blast Breath. Consistency, 4k counter. This card's absolutely phenomenal. Even when you don't have it in hand, you can leave one open to make your opponent think that you will have a 4k boost. And every deck has their counters, and I think you should be playing 4 of these no matter what in this current state of format. You can use it to like block with Queen against one of their like starter deck kids, and instead of discarding one of your 2Ks in hand, and you know that you're already at 9 or 10 Dawn, and you can afford just to like go down -1. You can Blast Breath, save the Queen, bump it up to 10. Um, have one open when you drop your Kaido down for 9 and swing in, and then they respond back like with their own Kaido. Instead of going up to 11 or bringing another card to hand, just Blast Breath. Overall, phenomenal card. Really, really good. And last but not least, the card you mulligan for, the card you need to see probably to win every single matchup, and just the bee's knees of the deck for Onigashima. Once you draw multiple of these, they're easy discards with a Queen, and then with Jack if you feel like it. But all around, mulligan for this. You're playing for this card to get use every single turn. Once you hit 10 Dawn, you can start using your Dawn -1 effects to generate advantage like Sasaki's late game, and then tap Onigashima to immediately bring the Dawn back out. It doesn't do too much to get to late game, but this is your ramp. This is the card you need. Mulliganing for it is perfect, and that's what you should be playing towards. In terms of like the limited battles format and how you should be approaching matchups, you kind of play everything the same way. You're fighting to live till late, and against certain decks, depending on like the size of your hand, I usually let like the first opening 2 or 3 swings land against me and just go down to 1 or 2 health and stay at 1 to 2 health the rest of the game. And then I'll use the characters that I play on board to swing at opposing characters that are suspended, and then the ones that aren't, you just who's who them, Brachio Bomber them, King them, and then Kaido them. And it just goes that way all the way up. You'll find that playing against Red is all about survival. If you hit your Onigashima and you hit probably 2 of your Blast Breaths and the Brachio Bomber for the Luffy's, you'll be in a good enough position to put yourself late and to keep your Kaidos around. I tend to burn my blockers, like my Black Marias. I'll burn them early, depending on how strong my hand is, because what I don't want to do is keep my Black Maria, my Queens around to set up as blockers late, and then they just play a Diablo Jambe, and then just get through my entire defenses that way. Against the blue matchup, if you get the late game, you will dominate. Doflamingo cannot handle everything this deck has available to it, and when your opponent has to like pay 4 Dawn to bounce back your Queen, if not pay 4 down to like bounce back anything else, it'll give you value somewhere on the board in some form. The only one that won't is if they bounce back like a who's who to hand, but then you can just redrop it to pop one of their blockers. Mm-hmm. So all around, this dominates the blue matchup. It needs to survive against red, and if it can, it's doing really, really well. And once you get to late game against green, that's probably like the closest matchup you'll feel. More than likely, like, I mean, I'm usually a green player, but I played purple to win my super pre-release. I think it's like close to a 50-50. The Brachio Bombers versus Basil Hawkins is very, very important. Kings to pop X-Drake is pretty solid. And when they drop down the 7-drop starter deck kit against you, you need to bait it out to block and just to kind of like gauge the experience and knowledge of your opponent. So you can swing in like Kaido at 5. And if I'm swinging in 5, obviously like they'll want to block with the 7. But, like if you do that, then you can take your king that you put down the previous turn, put a bunch of Dawn on it, and swing at the start of that kid. If not, you can do the same thing, and maybe you'll burn your queen this turn, and you're okay with taking another point of damage the following turn to make queen go up to 9 and swing and take out the start of that kid. So it's a lot of baiting going on. It's a lot of patience. Most of all, swinging with Kaido, Queen, Jack, Ultis, any of these other ones, but not your king and your Kaido to bait the starter deck kid to block last is like probably the most annoying play for a green player to experience, because if they block either one of these, then they know they're going to get run over and lose their board state. But if they choose not to block this, and then you opt to not swing with your king, just leave it unsuspended, then they have no immediate retaliation to the king outside of trying to use a straw sword, tapping it, and then swinging at it, which is, again, very frustrating for them to do, because they want to straw sword your queen, and they want to straw sword your other blockers to try and end the game. So I think that's like pretty much the best way to approach it. Fight for board positioning, and make sure it goes late. Make sure you draw Onigashima. It makes a super big difference.
Nice. Cool. Any closing comments, remarks?
No, it's probably the best deck to pick for a like consistent game. Definitely get in a few reps with it, so that way you can understand when it's okay to Dawn minus and when it's not, especially if you don't hit Onigashima. So I think the most skill comes from, if you don't have Onigashima on board, how much are you willing to invest into like the Dawn minus plays? And you should notice that like you don't want to use Who's Who or you don't want to use King yet until you at least ramp up to 9 and then able to drop a Kaido to win board back. I see far too many players, get their Who's Who, play it, the following turn they Sasaki, and they're just trying to draw into the Onigashima. You pretty much just want to accept the fact that you missed it, and then you kind of want to just, keep drawing, try to curve out late, go into your Queen, and then go into your King and Kaido and play like a a slower pace game where you can't ramp as well, right? Mm-hmm. So with that being said, this ability on Kaido can get used by any of the Dawn on your board at any place. So, namely your character attachments. You can attach 7 Dawn up to your characters on board, swing with them, and then if your opponent chooses to block or counter them, you can remove them all off your characters and trash their 1 point of damage. And that's very, very important. I feel like not enough people know that you can do that. And they just think it has to come from your board or like tapped down here. But you can definitely do it off your characters. And that can set up lethal, and you can kind of skill check your opponent if they're aware that is like how the game mechanic works. And that's usually how I ended up winning most of my games. In the mirror match as well as like the green matchup, I would put like 3 on the Kaido here, swinging for 8. They would take the hit, and there are 1 life left, and I'd put like 4 on the like page 1, knowing that they're probably going to want to block this. And so I swing in, they block it, and I take all 7 from the 3 and the 4, trash their last life, and then swing at them with Kaido or King that I have on board for game with my extra Dawn. Yeah, that's all I got.
That's all you got. All right, guys. Don't forget to check Russell out on YouTube. The link is in the description. And that's about it.
Thank you.